Yo, what's up guys, it's Yeti here. So in today's video, we're gonna quickly go over the massive Mythic Plus changes that Blizzard just announced for Season 2 of The War Within. So let's scroll down and let's, instantly go to the summary. So the summary of the changes means that Gilded Crests, which are crests that are used to upgrade the last few tracks of Heroic and most of the Mythic, are available from +7s, so they're moving them down one level further. Hero track is now available from +6s, which is also very nice. I'll explain you why later. Mythic 0 now drops champion gear. Insanely good for new players or new gearing alts. Tyrannical and Fortified, which are the affixes that increase the HP and damage of either the boss or the ads, has been moved to level 7 and level 10. And Challenger Peril has been removed. So Challenger Peril was the affix that made the timer go up by 90 seconds, but made each death cost 15 seconds. It was really annoying to deal with already under lower levels, and it often caused one wipe to doom the key. Now, Xalata's Guile is the affix that was previously available for players doing +12s and higher, which, it increased, so it removed the positive affix that you get in the season, and it increased the health and damage of the enemies by 10%. So now this is including the Challenger's Peril. So now the deaths are still going to be more punishing. The timer will be bigger on higher keys. So at +12, this will be active, while this raw stats thing is no longer active, which is, in my opinion, actually not that bad. And also removing the 10% bonus stats removes that very obvious wall where an ability, half chunks you and an ability kills you between key level 11 and 12. I know it's not that bad, but it's similar to that. At +12 keys cannot deplete past that level once you've timed every dungeon at that difficulty, which means that once you time all 13s, keys cannot deplete past 13s. This is really nice. And they have also moved the 2850 mount to 3000, which I actually like. Now, this, in a nutshell, just looking at the changes, they're really good, especially this change right here, that at +12s, keys cannot deplete past that level anymore. I do think that this should be a system implemented in World of Warcraft all around, but just looking at these changes, I am filled with positivity, and I cannot wait to see how this season feels, because in Season 1 of The War Within, I've been doing a lot of Mythic Plus, probably more than ever before. I've also geared more alts. I just enjoyed running keys more, even though the dungeons were not my favorite. I already thought that the systems were good, and this seems like Season 2 will be objectively better. Now let's read a little bit more into the details of the patch. Over the course of The War Within Season 1, the development team has received extensive feedback on Mythic dungeons, much of which revolved around frustrations, especially in trying to progress through the system, primarily in pickup groups. Common areas of criticism have included a sense that players were faced with too many mechanics at once, that failure was too punishing, that rewards felt insufficient for the challenge and effort required, and that it could be hard for many players to find groups as the community gravitated towards meta specs to help cope with these difficulties. I 100% agree, and I'm glad they got this feedback and they understand what we're talking about. We have already approached our Season 2 dungeon rollout on the PTR, and ongoing tuning with an eye towards addressing mechanical issues. Cast times on critical enemy spells have been significantly increased. I saw that, and this is really good. Tank damage spikes reduced, thank God, in magnitude and or given better telegraphs. The overall number of threats in an average pack of enemies has been reduced, and more. I hope this is true. I have not done testing myself, but looking at some of the keys done on PTR, this kinda seems true. We also made improvements to rewards, and especially reducing the penalty of failing to finish a dungeon within the timer. In the Siren Isle content update, but we understood that there was still more to do in order to fully address the feedback we've been hearing. Now, as we approach our second season, we have a chance to make some broader changes to the structure of Mythic dungeon progression. So yes, I think overall the changes they have introduced in the Siren Isle content update have been very good. Again, I geared up an alt very recently, and I felt the change was insane. I still think that Valor Stones have to be removed. Yes, we're getting a lot more of them now, but the cap of 2,000 is a joke. I would say maybe uncap Valor Stones if you really want players to play the game, but don't limit it to 2,000. You could also just remove the resource altogether. A factor that we see as an underlying cause of many of the cited issues is the lack of smooth and heavy difficulty / reward progression in the current system, and rewards are an essential part of that picture. The introduction of delves has significantly changed the endgame reward ecosystem. Players who were accustomed to doing M+ in past expansions may have geared up in delves at the start of the War Within Season 1 and then looked at the M+ reward track and found few or no rewards worth their time below the Mythic 7 level or so. That had two main effects. Yeah, this is 100% true. I think that doing keys under 7 was not worth. Delves were faster. Delves even had chance to drop some insane trinkets, and you know, they would give you hero vaults, so 100% agree with this take here. Lots of players would enter the system at Mythic 7 since they didn't need more champion gear, and Mythic 7 was the first level to drop hero track items from each run. However, often these players frankly lack the dungeon experience required to succeed at that level. Dealing with a 77% bonus to enemy health and damage on top of Challenger's Peril, making deaths more costly, was never designed to be an environment in which to learn mechanics for the first time. And yet, many players ended up doing just that. This heavily impacted success rate, led to a sense of inconsistency from group to group, and made many players more wary and more selective in filling groups for their keys. I think that +7s at start of the season were literally considered a torture method. I think it was that bad. I, as somebody who pugged keys at start because I did not have a team yet, I'm going to be honest, that was insanely painful. Meanwhile, the keys in 2 to 6 range had a shallow applicant pool, especially past the first weeks of the season. This meant that even players who tried to start at a lower difficulty level in order to build the experience to succeed at +7 keys also often had a hard time finding and forming groups, experiencing many of the same frustrations. Looking ahead to Season 2, our aim is to make the Mythic dungeon system more rewarding from the outset and to smooth out the difficulty progression so that each step feels approachable. I like this. I like this system. I like the idea. I agree with everything they've said so far, and I think if they deliver on these changes, I'm going to be very, very happy. To that end, we are making the following changes. Baseline Mythic, aka Mythic 0 dungeons, will now award champion track gear from each boss with a weekly instance lockout. We're going back to weekly, I think? The health and damage of enemies in those dungeons has increased to reflect the improved rewards, while keeping Mythic 0 an accessible point of entry for players beginning their Season 2 gearing journey, and those looking to learn dungeons in a lower stakes environment. From Mythic 2 through 10, each new level will now increase the health and damage of enemies by 7% down from the previous 10. Per level scaling will remain at 10% for Mythic 11 on. I really like this, actually. I think that the dungeon squish has caused a lot of problems in the community. I think that, you know, filling up your vault should not be as hard as it was early in Season 1. But I also think that, you know, later on players should be able to go as high as they want with the keys. And, you know, this is good, making the +10 still kinda somewhat doable so that the players can get their Mythic track items, because you get 1 per week anyways as an M+ player. It should not be free, but it should also not be the hardest thing in the world, so I like this. The Xalata's bargain rotating affixes will move up from Mythic 2 to Mythic 4, leaving no affixes other than the existence of a timer at the 2 entry levels of the M+ system. Very good as well. The alternating cycle of Tyrannical and Fortified will move from Mythic 4 to replace the Challenger's Pearl affix at Mythic 7, with the other one continuing to take effect at Mythic 10. Again, I don't really care about this. I don't think it's a big change, but this is good. I mean, it's still rotating and they're both active at 10, so yeah. At Mythic 12, instead of additional 10% increase to enemy health, Xalata's Guile will now include the increased timer penalty for deaths that was formerly part of Challenger's Peril, as a replacement for those rotating bargain affixes. While the mechanic could feel overly punishing for groups still learning and progressing towards gear reward, a focus on clear execution remains appropriate for the upper echelons of the system, and removing the extra 10% stats should make the transition into the prestige tiers of the system feel like less of a wall. The requirements to achieve some key reward tiers have been reduced. For example, hero track gear is now available in end-of-run chests from Mythic 6 dungeons. Gilded crests are available from Mythic 7 and up. I think that this scaling is perfect. I actually, just looking at it from far away, this is entirely perfect. Now we're going to just look at the rewards, and then we're going to talk more about the specifics of the system. So this is a breakdown of the new rewards and affixes at each level follows. So This is the difficulty / health damage. This is the affix, end of dungeon reward, the Great Vault reward, and the crests that are rewarded. So right off the start, we see Mythic, is the base one, and it gives you Champion 1 and Champion 4 from the Vault. Mythic 2 is already giving you Hero Track. I don't know which level already gives you Hero Track in the normal game right now, but I don't really mind. But yeah, as we see, plus 10 is still the only M+ giving Mythic 1 track from the Vault. Now, do I want this to be changed? Maybe, potentially, but I also think that the difficulty change that they have done with the scaling and the affixes, I think Mythic 10 is going to be, the one you are running to fill up your vault. I hope many players will be doing plus 10s, and plus 10s will be like, you do this because you are a somewhat competent player and you want your character to be insanely strong. And then later on in the season, or of course, Mythic Raiders, they can push keys higher. They can go to 11, 12, etc. And, plus 12 is the one that is giving the most gilded crests. You get 20 crests for a completed dungeon, which is, amazing. It's not like this matters that much, especially with the cap you have at start. I don't really know how many people are pushing, Mythic 12s in the first week or two. I mean, some people are, but for most of the community, the fact that you get 16 gilded, Mythic 1 track from Vault, you get Hero 3 as a drop, and you have Tyrannical and Fortified with an 84% buff to the damage of the monsters is going to be really, really good. Especially because earlier in the article, they were saying how Mythic plus 7 used to be, how much percent? 77% to bonus enemy and health. So like right now, the current Mythic 7 difficulty is like between a 9 and a 10, if I understand the maths here correctly. Pretty cool, actually. On balance, this version of the system should have a more rewarding point of entry, smoother progression, and an overall lower difficulty than players experienced in Season 1. Big W, guys. Let's go. One additional note, and of relevance to players at the upper end of the system, we are changing the rating requirements for the new Keystone Legend achievement being added in Season 2, moving it from 2850 to 3000. This is being done to keep it at a comparable level of challenge and prestige after the changes to overall scaling. We will also be decoupling this achievement from the system that allows players to set a floor for their high-end keystones. Instead, once a player has finished all 8 seasonal dungeons at Mythic 12 within the timer, their keystone will no longer automatically de-level below 12. Once a player has timed all dungeons 13, the new floor will be 13, and so on and so forth. I think they are doing this just to please the streamers, and I think streamers will be so happy with this change. I can't, not just streamers, obviously anyone who is pushing the high end of Mythic Plus. This is such a welcome change for those people, but I think that this system, the keys going up, like I'm already going to tell you, in 11.1.5, this system is going to become active on every single level. So if you have completed all 6s, your key will no longer fall below a 6. If you completed all 7s, it's gonna. I think it's gonna be like that. And I mean, at least I can imagine they will, introduce a system like this. Anyways, thank you guys for watching this video. I hope we debunked the story, decently well, and I explained what's going on, and I, read out through the whole patch notes. Being a dyslexic person, it is what it is. But I think the changes overall are very, very good, and I'm excited for the season. So thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you in the next one, and peace out.